Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Gilliland, one of the founding attorneys of the Legal Geeks. With me is Thomas Harper as we kick off 2022. Yes, we're here. We survived. Granted, it's only day two, but we are here to talk about Book of Boba Fett and some of the things that we had at the end of 2021. Tom, how you doing?
You're talking really ominously. We're 48 hours into 2022, and I'm like gonna scramble and find wood to knock on. We need to at least have the optimism that we're gonna make it through the end of season. Well, if this is season one, the current iteration of Book of Boba Fett. I need these 7 episodes. After that, we can discuss. But the next 7 weeks are non-debatable. I have to survive those.
I don't agree with those who said 2020 must die type mindset, because I look at it. Yeah, 2021 was hard. I was hospitalized. My grandfather died, and despite those horrible things happening, I thought it was an okay year. And I know that sounds shocking to a lot of folks, but a lot of people, everything that had happened when you throw in January 6th, which I still include as part of 2020. I personally didn't believe 2021 didn't start until January 20th, 2021. And then that's when the new year really kicked off. But here we are. And we actually got to see each other in person back in December in Los Angeles.
It's amazing.
Tell us why we were there during a pandemic.
Well, I was working, kind of. You were there to support a friend, as good friends, great friends do. The belt that's the audio listeners won't get this, but the shiny Star Wars belt that's behind me around Captain Rex's waist was up for grabs. I had to defend it in the Pro Trivia League that I've been a part of. That was my 2021, other than kids and work and changing jobs and doing all sorts of things. I decided to get involved in even harder Star Wars trivia, and it culminated with an event out there in LA, their Super Bowl event, and I had to defend the belt against the challenger in 5 rounds of crazy Star Wars trivia. Had camo face paint. I play a military type character in the league, and yeah, it was a blast. And I tell you, the best part of the whole weekend, and I'm not just doing this to pad your ego, but it was just really great seeing you. Marissa couldn't come out with me, my wife, for those that know. She couldn't come out with me, so I was out there. And had I not seen you, had I not seen my friends Jess and Dawson, who came along too, I really would have been there with some people that I know from the league, but that's about it. But you and I, we've known each other, what, going on 6 years now, something like that. So, I count you as one of my closest friends, but seeing you was really amazing. Getting to finish, win or lose, on the stage. I won, which felt good. But regardless of that outcome, getting to go up into the balcony and just hang out with you. We watched the match that followed and whatnot, and got to hang out a little bit. That was the highlight of the weekend. It felt like normal again, not the con setting that we're used to normally. But nonetheless, it was a lot of fun. It was like one of the first like normal feelings that I've had in a long, long time. And it was really nice. So I want to thank you for coming down and making that trek down the state to come see it. But it was really good hanging out.
It was mine. It was great to get out. That was my third trip of 2021. So we did Denver, then San Diego Comic-Con special edition, and then your trivia event. It was nice to see LA. It was the second time or third time on an airplane since the pandemic, and so that was surreal. But it was great to actually see you in person. That trivia battle was terrifying. I consider myself knowledgeable about Star Wars. I don't have Oscar counts memorized or playing the game, which Oscar nomination was not included, or who played this unnamed character,
On
and
screen for
in the
2 seconds. Yeah.
yeah, it's like that. That was terrifying. Like, number of Tuskin Raiders. Well, that's easy. Like,
Yeah,
I got
yeah.
that. But there was others of just like, dear God, this is horrifying. And the fact that you and Demi were just both nailing each one, it's like
Yeah. Blow for blow.
it was impressive. It was one of the most
Oh,
impressive
thanks.
displays of Star Wars trivia knowledge I have
Just
ever seen.
useless. I'd much rather be talking, like getting grilled about, Star Wars legal issues than trying to rack my brain for some of the details that we have to remember there. But yeah, so we do that, and then just a few weeks later, we get brand new Star Wars to kick off the new year, which is great.
Yeah, and right after Christmas. Now, did you get any good Star Wars swag for Christmas?
I did. I don't know if I can reach it. I got Din Djarin's Amban Phase Pulse Rifle, the Nerf version of it, and I don't know if you'll be able to hear this, but it does have. So it's got a little. Let's see if I can get it to work here. I may not. It may be jammed right now, but it's got the action that opens up, that kicks up for him to load around.
Okay.
And then it'll make a little charge sound. Oh, there's the rifle firing. So it pops up there, and then just listen to this. The round charges up. I don't know if you could hear that, but very cool. I've been informed that even my 3-year-old is too young to shoot at yet with Nerf bullets, but the day will come, and we will have Nerf battles. And I will proudly wield this unwieldy Nerf gun in the house.
This was a gift for myself. That was a pre-order last year for Christmas, and it arrived, of the Darksaber.
Ooh, very nice.
Yeah, it is glorious.
That looks great.
The blade's detachable.
Yeah.
It's USB chargeable, unlike the other FX lightsabers.
Very cool.
The weight, I mean, like it feels real.
Looks great.
Oh, thank you. And I'm gonna.
Now you rule Mandalore.
Or well, I'll settle for putting a nice mount on the wall for it, so that way it goes. And yeah, it'll be good times. Good times. And I also got the Star Wars encyclopedia that Dan Z helped.
Nice.
Right. So good times. In addition to a nice Harryhausen book and other fun things.
Very well timed, given the connection in this episode.
Yeah, and let's dive in and talk about it, because first impression, I am super grateful to have Star Wars on weekly. I think Star Wars works exceptionally well in as a TV show, for TV show format, and I love seeing it this way. Because Boba Fett, in was it the Beneath the Helmet or Under the Helmet special, and I keep flipping on what's the proper title for it. Boba Fett had 4 lines, maybe 6 minutes of screen time overall.
Right.
And I mean, like, I didn't fully understand the fascination with the character. I do admit that Slave One was one of my favorite Star Wars toys as a kid. And there were lots of hours spent running around the yard that went around our house in Altadena with that, or the Falcon and my Y-Wing. But, it had a handle on the back. It was a good toy. And it was cool. So, like, I understand that part. But it's like, why was there this fascination with a character that barely had any screen time? It's paid off. It took 40 years.
Yeah.
It's really paid off. And whether it's Jeremy playing the original incarnation, who just seemed like a heck of a nice guy with all of his con experiences, to Morrison just being a stellar human being, it's great to see this recognition for the character and have it on a weekly basis now, with jumping in and actually having good stories to talk about them.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed this. I knew trying to top the Mandalorian intro of like a Grogu type introduction, you're never going to get that again.
Yeah.
Like you're going to, that's up there with the "I am your father" reveal. Like it's years in the making for something like that. This was a solid story. I give it a B+, and I was just really happy with it. And I've watched it, I think, 5 times now. How about you?
I really liked it. I wish that they would just knuckle under and just give us hour-long episodes. 35 minutes felt way too short. Give us, it's a 7-episode series. I'm fine if you give us a double episode premiere. Just count it as 2 episodes, but double the time or kick it out to an hour and a half or so. There's certainly plenty of story to tell there. That was really my only gripe, and that's a gripe of like, I'm greedy and I want more Star Wars. I think the character of Boba Fett, they followed closely the pattern set by Mandalorian, a pattern of success. But unlike Mando, who we came in and he was just completely fresh, we've been reintroduced to Boba, right? We saw him quite a bit last season, so we're not treading completely new ground here, and I think that presented its own challenges from a storytelling perspective. And I thought they dealt with it really well. I thought that this episode, maybe much more so than Mando season 1, episode 1, it felt like a setup pilot. And I think hindsight in 2 or 3 weeks is going to give us a lot of insight on some of the seeds that are being planted. But some of the criticism I saw, were things like, I wish more had happened. I thought more was going to happen and whatnot. And I think that stems from where we saw Boba come in at the end of Mando, right? I mean, he immediately comes in and is in a battle and whatnot, and that sets certain expectations. He's not coming in clean, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
Similar feelings. Where to begin with this? Going to Jabba's palace was like revisiting childhood, just flashing back to 1983 and seeing Return of the Jedi. It's like, it's a strange feeling.
Yeah.
Or the flashback to escaping the Sarlacc pit. It's like a continued scene from Jedi that's hours later. Like, the fact that Death Star 2 probably hasn't blown up yet. Like we're within several hours. They're probably at best flying by Endor,
Right.
and sneaking past Vader. So like it's kind of a head trip for the flashbacks, going like, so because he could not have been in there more than several hours maybe 12 at most, because the fires had gone out on the barge. But we jump into some big legal issues
immediately.
Immediately he's robbed by Jawas. Them stripping him. There are 2 crimes that take place here. There's robbery and battery, and robbery is the felonious taking of personal property in the possession of another from his person or immediate presence and against his will, accompanied by means of force or fear. That's California Penal Code Section 211. Or battery, which is a willful and unlawful use of force or violence upon the person. Tom, how did that happen in both instances to Boba Fett with the Jawas?
They have a thing with Mandalorians, I think. Like, I don't know if it's the armor or just like the junk that's there, but they don't really have any boundaries when it comes to just taking stuff that belongs to people of that particular creed. The thing about robbery and battery is that so Josh laid out the definitions there, and he mentioned the term by means of force or unlawful use of force. Violence is a little bit different. That doesn't mean a physical altercation necessarily. It can be, right? So force can happen through, like, Josh and I are struggling. I'm a Jawa and he's got some Beskar that I want and I want to take it. It can just be the application of contact, right? It can be, in this instance, the taking off of stuff that's on his body. And I don't remember the case, but there's a case I recall vaguely from law school, involving a civil suit between, I think it was two students, and the assault in question, or the battery in question, was somebody slapped a lunch plate, or a lunch tray out of another student's hands. They never touched the other student, but that contact was enough, with an item connected to the other person, in that case, the lunch tray being held, that it constituted battery. Well, in this case, Boba is pretty much unconscious, at least, mostly unconscious, incapacitated, to fight back or whatever. That doesn't mean that the Jawas can't exact force on him, and they do just that by just literally ripping the armor piece by piece off of his body. Stuff that I think, sequences in Mandalorian season 2 tell us he didn't want to happen. He's not willfully, just giving over his armor and saying thank you for the assistance.
No, these are some fierce Jawas, because he's not dead. Like, I'm used to Jawas being scavengers and just, I mean, you understand where C-3PO refers to them as disgusting creatures. They're not nice.
Yeah.
They earned that here. But one of them hits him with the rifle butt.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, okay, that's intimate. It's just bad. Now, here's an interesting question. Is being left for dead by Jawas attempted murder? And I found some interesting case law from Louisiana. And I haven't looked at all 50 states, but this was the initial search that I did, that if he dies, they could be prosecuted for murder. But if he survives, not attempted murder, because there is a specific intent to kill requirement that's an essential element of the crime of attempted second-degree murder. A specific intent to inflict great bodily harm is sufficient to find the defendant guilty of murder if the victim dies, but is not sufficient to find him guilty of the attempt if the victim survives. Boba Fett fits this nicely, that he's left for dead. They do strike him. While there was no duty to render aid, there was definitely a duty not to mug him and take his parts of his clothing from him and then leave him for dead. So this is one of those weird instances where it's not attempted murder. But if he died, they could go after the Jawas for second-degree murder. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, if only they hadn't needed to rifle butt him in the face, they would have been in much more solid legal footing, I think, here. But that really opens up the door. That use of violence against Boba opens the door to some things, because clearly, one of the things that you might argue in terms of circumstantial evidence about their intent is that they know the desert out there on Tatooine as well as anybody. They know his odds of surviving in any circumstance, but especially without protective armor, assuming that stuff has cooling capabilities or something like that for his body, is low. The Jawas know what they're doing by leaving him sitting there. And so one might argue, an enterprising prosecutor might argue, that one need look no further than the fact that they hit him in the head with a rifle butt and left him in a place that they knew he was going to perish in, for evidence. I don't know that it would be successful or that it would necessarily meet the elements there, but it's a lot different than just coming up and stealing his armor. He's laying there and can't do anything, and then they just leave him. I think that's a very different set of circumstances. Still cruel, and I still agree with C-3PO. I guess the more and more we see of Jawas on the small screen in Star Wars, the more I agree with him. As a kid, I was like, he's being so mean. They're cute and they have like little glowing eyes, and they're just out, like small entrepreneurs on Tatooine trying to, run small businesses. And then here we are with some valuable additional information.
It's like, oh no, like this is, we don't want to categorize an entire group, but wow, like the ones we see keep doing horrible things to others. Wow. It's like they're rolling mobsters, that are just
tiny little rolling mobsters.
Yeah, they're just going around with their portable chop shop, taking personal property and selling it. Just horrible. So, good question if you could bring a RICO action against them, but they're pretty sadistic with what they do. Then things continue to get worse for Boba, because we have him getting kidnapped by Tuskin Raiders after he's left for dead. And sure, they squeeze water out of a worm. At least that's what I hope they were doing. They don't give him a hat. Like we understand Luke's floppy hat from the deleted Star Wars.
They do exist. Yeah, they're out there.
He clearly needs one of those, a bucket hat, so he doesn't get skin cancer on his scalp. But they don't give him anything. He's been in stomach acid. And then they bound him and tow him behind a bantha, which, banthas have exhaust systems, so that's going to be bad. And then he ends up getting drugged because he passes out, because human beings do require food and water, and they really don't seem interested in giving him either.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of time before he starves to death or dies of dehydration, and they're just working him to death. And then they leave him tied up in the sun. So, like, this is, at what point does he just die from that? But I look at this as, there's just all this agony porn in this episode that turns into an issue of, like, he's been kidnapped by Tusken Raiders. And do you want to talk us through, the issues of kidnapping and torture?
Yeah, so it's almost an extension of, in terms of the legal definition, what we were talking about in terms of battery and robbery. But at the core, because at the core of these, the definition of these crimes, what you have is the use of force to exact something. Before, it was use of force to steal property. Here, it's the use of force or some other means, fear, that sort of thing, to take somebody, to hold somebody, to arrest them. And then there is the essential element that they have to be transported as well. And that can vary from state to state, but generally, in order to get from something like an unlawful detention to a kidnapping, you have to have some sort of transport. Doesn't have to be far. In California, it's what another country, county, state, another part of the same county. I don't know if courts have interpreted that down to, generally speaking, when you deal with like wiggle room like that, and you're talking about a crime like kidnapping, it isn't much, right? It doesn't, you don't have to transport them far. It could be the next block in some jurisdictions. It could be outside of your house, that, you get kidnapped in your bed and they transport you out to the car, and that's enough for kidnapping. Here, very clearly, they're taking him from the Great Pit of Carkoon to their camp. It seems, based on the montage, like it was a little bit of a walk through the desert. Love that they're riding single file. I have to imagine if there was somebody trying to figure out, the numbers of these Tusken Raiders, they're like, okay, I'm counting a couple banthas here, and then just the drag marks from Boba. Like, what is this, a snake? I don't know. But yeah, they clearly drag him over to this camp. So they clearly meets the the intent of kidnapping. My curiosity, and I think a reasonable juror would be curious, just why? We don't really know, and this doesn't just carry in this episode, but in Attack of the Clones, what's the purpose behind Shmi getting kidnapped? That's really an unexplored area, unless I've missed something that's out there in canon. Um, I'm just confused why, other than for the sake of having a prisoner and maybe food. I don't know if they eat people. Who knows? But um, it made no real sense why they would do this sort of thing. Well, they put him to work here, so I guess that's a reason.
Yeah, they eventually start using him as slave labor.
That's true.
But Shmi is definitely in that category that, these guys were all John the Bastard, that they were just bad for the sake of being bad in 1977. And then Attack of the Clones was what, 2002, 2003?
Yep, 2002.
2002. It's like, what's going on? Like, why are they doing these things? And, Mandalorian did a great job of exploring their culture and moving them out of the category of they're just bad and because they're different to they're complex. And these are the first Tusken Raiders we've seen who aren't wearing all tan. Like they have a different wardrobe because they're a different tribe group. I don't know what their nomadic structure is for what term they prefer, but they're different. And that's just the fact that they're trusting the youth with caring for the prisoners, if not outright torturing the prisoners by beating them. Like, has a definition of torture right there, that they have kids hitting them with sticks. And it's like, why? Now, the definition of torture in California is California Penal Code 206, and every person with the intent to cause cruel or extreme pain and suffering for the purpose of revenge, extortion, persuasion, or any sadistic purpose inflicts great bodily harm as defined in section 12022.7 upon the person of another is guilty of torture. We check all those boxes. Like, we don't know why the kids are just beating the crap out of Boba just cause. Like, it's a very weird reason.
Yeah.
But
sorry, go ahead.
But we have a different reaction from, like, say, Anakin, who is, I killed all the women and children, which, again, just as the PSA, if a prospective lover says that to you, do not reward that conduct with marriage. No. On the flip side, Boba doesn't strike a kid who's already hit him multiple times. He doesn't take it out on children, and that's refreshing. That, like, he clearly has a code. It looks immoral at times, but this is baseline morality right here of, I'm not going to beat a kid. Even if the kid were an adult, it would be completely justifiable for self-defense purposes.
Yeah, and I don't think you can make it, not that it's not a legal defense, as is the business of, there's some cultural component to this. If the Tusken Raiders were to say, well, this is traditional for our culture to have to hunt or get a kill. I'm thinking in universe of the Trandoshans and their sort of hunting rituals. You need to kill a Wookiee, say, to become an adult or gain respect, that sort of thing. I don't think that. I think in actuality there's a component of that in the Tusken religion, the Tusken culture, but not as it applies to other humans. I think maybe creatures, but that's not going to save them from a torture defense. There's not a religious exemption to say, well, Jesus told me so I'm allowed legally to to do these things to you. It's not the way the law works.
No, absolutely not. And religious defenses don't work against laws of general applicability. It's like, I needed to get to church. That's why I was speeding. No. Or I use the Mummy as a good example, that you don't get to commit desecration of a corpse by burning the 4,000-year-old mummy in order to resurrect your dead girlfriend.
Right.
Like, no. It's desecration of a corpse. You don't get to light the mummy on fire. Same thing here. You don't get to. It's our culture to beat people. No. Now we then jump to the present, and I having two flashbacks in this episode was kind of weird for me. I hope we don't alternate like this throughout all of the episodes, or if they do, I hope it works better. Because I would just prefer maybe a flashback episode and be done with it.
Yeah.
So
it was like 22 minutes of the runtime was flashbacks. So it's out of 35 minutes.
Yeah, it's that's my only part of feedback that I have for this. It just kind of felt weird to keep putting them in the tank, and once is fine, twice is too much. But after the street fight, I understand why he was put in.
Right.
But we have the tribute scene. Do you have any legal reactions to people showing up to offer tribute?
This was a great scene, top to bottom. It's good to see extortion come into play immediately. Fett, he doesn't. I'll give him credit. He doesn't sugarcoat what he's trying to do. He's trying to fill the void that Jabba left and be a crime lord. Except he's never been a crime lord before. He's only worked for them. So, something as simple as having a translator droid to be able to tell you what those you're extorting are telling you, it's not something that occurred to him. So I love that he had the little smelter droid in there kind of playing MC to this whole thing. But, extortion, which we don't see a ton of. We see a little bit scattered here and there, but this is like really extortion in its prime. What you're talking about is obtaining property or some other form of what we would call consideration under the law. So something of value from another with their consent, or you can obtain a public or some sort of official act from a public officer, which we'll get to in a second here with the mayor, and you're inducing that exchange through a wrongful use of force, the wrongful use of fear, or under some color of official right. And when we talk consideration, that's a term that gets thrown around in a lot of legal context, but here it means anything of value. So we see a wide variety, which we'll get into in just a second, of things of value that get offered up to him. But yeah, the bottom line here is that Jabba clearly had a system not unlike the mob through which these entities are presumably paying him or giving him gifts, A, out of fear that he might kill them if they didn't, or B, for some sort of protection, which we'll also talk about in conjunction with the scene at the sanctuary toward the end of the episode. But I love, in particular, I love that first, was it an Aqualish that comes up first, and they have no idea what he's saying, and it was like, is our subtitles supposed to be on? And then Fennec is kind of like, I had no idea what he's saying, and so you're like, oh, okay.
The concept art at the end that they show, there's one of them is Boba in the throne, and you see a protocol droid head at his feet, and it's like, okay, that also would be super handy just to have one.
Plug this in.
Yeah, I don't know if they got the equivalent of Amazon, but yeah, order a protocol droid who can translate what the walrus guy is saying. That he brought money. I mean, he did pay well.
This is true.
But then with the Trandoshan showing up with a Wookiee pelt, That's like showing up with the pelt of a golden retriever. I would be very upset if that happened. It's like your corgi pelt. No, like that's horrible. Yeah. So, wow. I mean, I did not expect to see that in live action. But since we've seen the lizard monkey on a pike on the rotisserie, I guess anything's fair game now.
This is true. This is true.
So there's the issue with the mayor's lackey demanding tribute, and that's extortion right back as well. Because
that may have been the best exchange of the whole episode.
But I'm the crime lord.
Like 1,000 apologies or whatever he says. You just got the hand motions down and everything.
Very appreciated. It's like, wow. Yeah, he's probably extremely dangerous. Even though he looks like middle management and has all the wishy-washy words, he's probably a very dangerous individual.
Yeah, I think you've got to be on Tatooine and one. So this is Mos Espa, the largest city that we know of on Tatooine. It's clearly gotten bigger since we saw it in the Phantom Menace. But yeah, there's clearly some designs here that I think are going to unfold in later seasons. But extortion works both ways too. I mean, arguably here you have attempted extortion on both sides. Both, I don't know. It remains to be seen how it'll play out, what the mayor expects, what the prior relationship was, if there was one with the Hutts, and what was expected here. I think it's clear that it is not your traditional, or was not your traditional sort of story of a government official being like afraid of the local crime lord and paying them whatever money they need to stay out of things. That could be a function of knowing that Jabba's gone, like the big dog's gone. Now there's just a power vacuum and a guy that nobody really knows sitting on the throne.
When you think of Dryden Vosh, a governor, and no repercussions, he just stabs the governor. Or you had Maul as a crime lord who would have been super scary to deal with. Jabba at least seems like you could at least barter with him that he's dangerous, but he also understands business.
Right.
I'm not saying that's a good combo, but if you're dealing with a radically dangerous person, having someone who values a good business relationship is the better situation to try to survive.
Well, and interestingly, we haven't seen much in the way of official government structure on Tatooine. This is the first that I can recall, and it's a little bit late, so maybe my brain's fuzzy, but it's my first time hearing somebody with an official title, like an elected position. Not that we know that about this mayor, but about anybody on Tatooine. Cobb Vanth sort of had this like de facto like sheriff's role out on the frontier there, but we really don't have much, and so it's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out and what he's expecting. I think we're gonna see some more complex legal issues come out of that relationship. Whether the thugs that attack Boba and Fennec toward the end of the episode have any connection to the mayor remains to be seen. But yeah, there'll be some more for us to unpack there.
Yeah, well, we'll hit that because I have theories. But we have the issue with was it 8E8, the torture droid? Yes. Wanting to torture the Gamorrean guards who were loyal to both Jabba and what was it? Why am I blanking on Bib? Yeah. I wanted to call him Bibby. It's like, no, there isn't a second eye. Okay, Bibs.
Somebody probably calls him Bibby, a loved one.
Yeah, definitely, well, maybe the chef, but but it was nice to see. Yeah, let's not torture these guys. Let's give them. Okay, you're loyal. I'm on board with this. Will you be loyal to me? And that was the right call.
Yeah.
It was the absolute right call because they were extremely loyal. And it's like, okay, those are the type of people you want in your employ, even though it's a criminal enterprise and we don't support this. So it's
say what you will about the Gamorreans. Smart employment decision by two savvy pigs that knew their employment law. They understood that this is an at-will relation. There was an at-will relationship with Jabba. There was no employment contract in place. Clearly, it was either survive or be killed at the end of your time. They survived. This new employer is not exactly sitting you down for an interview, and it's an at-will scenario. So at any given moment, Boba could decide that he's done with you and fire you with a wrist rocket.
They had a colleague get eaten by a rancor. Like there's, they know there's risk in this job.
They're not union, and if they are, they need to get their dues money back.
Yeah, they really need to look into OSHA. Like it's just, did someone weld up that trap drawer? Because that's just bad mojo right there. But we get to the sanctuary, and I appreciate that the name of the bar is the Sanctuary because of the Mandalorian episode with the same name. I just find that very kisme. And we have Jennifer Beals, who, being old enough to remember Flashdance when it came out in the theater, was important to many young men at the time, and good for her. Happy to see her, and just neat. But that's a thriving bar, and just to revisit the text that I sent you before this episode dropped, I will read it because we didn't know what was going to happen. And it was at, let's pull it up. It was around, was it 2:00 in the afternoon? Yeah, 2:54 Pacific time on Tuesday last week. I think the important question to ask about Book of Boba Fett is whether the Max Rebo band will reunite. And
part of it.
I just watching it at midnight, I was like, Max Rebo, yes. Oh, but
his last employer was tragically detonated. Well, strangled and then detonated. Max, I said there had been some basically loose confirmation that he had survived the barge explosion, but I mean, I don't know how many Ortolans are wandering around Tatooine who also play musical instruments, but I have to believe that's old Max.
You would also think when the fight was going on, some of them would start bailing out.
Yeah.
That it's when Luke is doing his thing and boards, you think some of them, I'm gone. Like, we're time to go.
No, we need to play background music to this. So
and the band
who do you think? Yeah, all the other music, that song that you hear playing during the battle, that is in scene. That is being played by the band there.
Oh Lordy. But again, we have more protection money being handed over, which again looks like extortion. And from a very savvy businesswoman who knows that we'll just refresh your helmets, fill them with credits, and
hose down your Gamorreans, don't forget.
And feed them. So
yes.
I mean, can we get them pants? I mean, like, why are they being treated so poorly for guys who are truly loyal employees? So it does then go to the street fight. Now, I think this is murder for hire, and I do believe it's the mayor's work because they're all in
Mhm.
uniform.
Yep. Yep.
And they're clearly trained, and we have them, crawling up walls. That really strikes me as this is the mayor's henchmen, and we probably have a murder for hire situation.
Yeah, they didn't exactly try to arrest him. I mean, there's a world in which if he was a legit elected official and these were some kind of law enforcement entity, they might try to arrest him for the murder of Boba Fett, or excuse me, of Bib Fortuna, that sort of thing. But that's not what was happening here. Um, Interesting. It doesn't seem this was not a pure robbery because the people that went away with the money that was in the helmets were like Jawas and just street people. So they were definitely there to kill both of them. And as ruthless as that fight was, I think it was pretty apparent that that was their aim. They weren't exactly trying to send some subtle message. And
And a kill that would be super painful because those shocking sticks,
yeah,
uh, I mean, are designed to be a torture weapon to maim and mutilate. And Bubba does take a bunch of hits to the abdomen, right under the diaphragm.
yeah,
And I mean, like him needing to go back into the back to tank makes a lot of sense,
hmm
just because he probably had some extreme
oh yeah,
internal injuries, if not outright bleeding. So it makes sense to toss him in the tank. But the fact I mean, he does disintegrate one of them publicly, which is a nice, strong message to show, don't mess with me.
yeah,
And then Fennec, telling Fennec to take one alive, or alive,
yeah.
it raises the issue: is it kidnapping to capture an assassin? And at this point, we're just dealing with lots of wrongs. Like everything here is illegal. So you're not supposed to collect protection money. You're not supposed to murder people.
Yeah.
It's just like everything that's happening is wrong in this episode.
Yeah. Well, I still feel like if you're talking the moment where Boba fires a wrist rocket and just deletes that person from existence, um, I think there's still an argument that even that person isn't actually retreating, that person is repositioning. Clearly, they've got numbers on them still. They're acrobatic. The threat isn't necessarily completely gone at that point. I think you're starting to stretch it a little bit because anytime you see these cases from time to time in the real world where uh, somebody's house is getting robbed and the person will chase the robber out of the house, the person who's running away, and that's when they get their shot. They'll usually it involves a gun, and they'll shoot the intruder front lawn or out in the street or something like that. And the argument always is, well, where's is the threat still there? I think for Boba, I mean, this is like not instantaneous, but mere moments after he was, almost killed. And so I think he's on safe legal footing there to use deadly force in a really cool way. On top of that, I mean, that's like a jury nullification thing. Like, well, if he had just like shot him, I might have been, but like it was a really cool wrist rocket. So, I
Okay,
mean, we can't find him
it's
guilty.
it sent a message.
Yeah.
So it projects force
Yeah.
in a don't mess with me kind of way. Now, what Fennec does, that's pure murder with the second guy on the roof. But it struck me when we're seeing the roof fight and them jumping around. I kept thinking of the deleted scene from A New Hope with Biggs.
hmm
And again, rightfully deleted, because if not, the intro would have been way too long.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like this, it looks familiar. And the fact that they're basically honoring what the look of Tatooine was in 1977 speaks of the attention to detail that the creatives have for this. And when you just throw in David Filoni and Favreau, they clearly have a love of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And God bless them for that. You know the toys they played with. Uh, now the jumping to the Harryhausen scene, like we go back to the flashback of post Return of the Jedi, and with that sand creature, well, before the sand creature, we see what looks like a moisture farmer getting robbed by a gang that has kind of a double L symbol.
Yeah.
Pure robbery right there. And it looks like they murder the individual as well. There's a good argument that there's torture going on by the Rodian and Boba getting drug around the desert and then being used as slave labor to dig up the nodules of water. But seeing that creature, it looked like the creature that was from 20 Million Miles to Earth and the Kraken from Clash of the Titans, the original Harryhausen's. And I'm not sure who loves Harryhausen, but clearly a lot of people on the production team do.
Yeah, it was that moment when it emerged, like it was like a deep part of my brain, my memory was reactivating, and I was trying to place it. And then when I hopped on Twitter and you texted with me, I was like, the itch was scratched. But yeah, I thought that was very cool. A creature that I don't think we've seen the likes of even in Legends. So a little bit of new territory. Interestingly, when they come back, this isn't so much a legal bit, but it may play into something, a legal issue down the line. It looks as if Boba allows the child or the undersized Tusken to take credit for the kill. And, at least based on sort of the last scene with the tribe there, it looks like he strikes some sort of friendly alliance, something like that. And I think that's going to come into play before this season is out.
They had to mutilate that body to get the head off.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, using the chain as a saw, and they still got to get through the neck. Like that's just really horrible to think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're going to give him a robe and a hat and water, so like not sleep tied up to the stake, because he could have killed the kid. I think they recognize he could have killed the kid and then left. God knows how long it would take to get to Anchorhead so he can get to a ship, so might not survive. But with the corpse of the 6-limbed creature, he could fashion some survival outfit from that hide.
Yeah.
And have a better chance of not dying under the twin suns of Tatooine to make it back. And he would have been justified in doing so, if not just tying up the kid with the chain and then going,
right,
I'm out. You got your dog that can go get help, and I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So, and we end on the flashback still. So I'm very happy to have this. I have weird feelings with the double flashback in one episode. And with that street fight, I kept wondering, why doesn't he use his jetpack and fly up? And I don't know if he needs his helmet in order to control it. I don't know, but if you're surrounded, the jetpack would be the easy solution to that problem.
Yeah. Hadn't fueled it up for the day. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That said, I am super grateful to have more Star Wars that we get to talk about and that we got to end 21 with.
Yeah, very true. And the amount of content. This is just the first chapter in a ton of on-screen content for the year, which is incredible. We've got Kenobi, Andor, and presumably Mando season 3 all stacked up. Even if it were just the first 3, Boba, Andor, and Kenobi, that's a phenomenal year. That's multiple movies worth of content there in terms of screen time. So it's going to be a good year for Star Wars, and we're off to the right start.
That's one show a quarter.
Yeah.
You know, that's incredible. You know,
Yeah.
if you told 5-year-old me that we would live in this world, I don't know if I would have comprehended the glory that we were going to
Oh yeah.
get, because that's live. We'll still get, I think, Bad Batch season 2 sometime this year as well.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. Some of this is the product of the pandemic and some of the delays with Kenobi, but it's all kind of shaken out well. Like I think we would have had Andor last year sometime, but I'm not complaining at all. You know, we started the pandemic and Mando that was Mando season 1 had filmed. They were able to get Mando season 2 in. There was no gap there. So we were really fortunate there, as movies and other shows got thrown off the rails. You know, folks are free to criticize whatever they don't like, but we're living in a pretty like plumb position where Star Wars really hasn't been thrown completely off track, but for some of the changes in the big screen stuff that hopefully will meet out to better content and better movies in the future. So
yeah, I'm okay with the delay. Take the time to do it right.
yeah.
And it's like Star Wars is doing a better job on TV than Star Trek is right now, and like, which is never a world I thought we would live in. And this is what we have,
Yeah.
and they're doing a great job that families can watch this together. You and I stay up late or get up really early to watch this.
Yeah.
It brings people together. It's so delightful to have this, because travel's hard right now. It's just, we're not going to get to do all the things that we did pre-pandemic. And this is one of those things that helps keep us sane. It gives us something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And talk about. And for us, it's packed full of legal issues. So,
and it's a Wednesday release, so we're already like halfway there.
Yeah, life is good. Despite life is good, and we should be very grateful for what we have.
Indeed.
That said, this is the beginning. There will be more. There's more movies coming out from Marvel and DC and all the other things that we love. And I can't wait to jump on chapter 2 with you next week. So
yeah.
Till then, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please leave a review, or Spotify, or Google, Amazon Music. Wherever you listen, please leave a review. And everyone, again, stay safe, stay healthy, and above all else, stay geeky.